Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session on Microsoft recruiting. My name is Alex Ruheni, and I am a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I am co-hosting this session with Felix, who will introduce himself, and next will be our guests. So kindly, Felix and our guests, which Jen and Ruth as well. I'd prefer the order to be Felix, Ruth, then Jen, best for last. So yeah. Kindly introduce yourself, who you are, let's know who you are, a fun fact about you, and yes. And one final thing for the guests, attendees, kindly feel free to post questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer all of them by the end of the session. So Felix, kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Alex. So my name is Felix Omok. I'm a CS student at Kirinyaga University. Apart from that, I'm a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. So one fun fact about me is that up to now, I'm still trying to solve the Rubik's Cube under 1 minute. So up to now, I'm only able to solve it in 1 minute, 30 seconds. So yeah, that's it. Ruth, you're welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I lost connectivity over here. I'm tethering from my phone. So if you're not getting me with any clear audio, is because it's going through my phone.
I think we can hear you just fine. Yes.
Awesome. I don't know what I missed. Was I supposed to? Is it my turn?
Yes, introduce
It's
yourself.
like passing a hot potato. I get the hot potato, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you do, fun facts about you. Perhaps you've ever solved a Rubik's Cube. I haven't, sadly. So yeah, but I'm up for the challenge.
All right, Ruth. My name's Ruth Rowan. I lead the Student and Community Engagement Program at the Africa Development Center. Fun fact about me, I don't know. What did I say last time? I tend to. I'm trying to make up something that's that's a fun something about me. I love Legos, so I can spend hours and hours working, building projects, like elaborate projects, with my kids in the Lego table. Like I'm talking about, we would have a challenge, and the challenge would be, oh, let's build a theme park, and it would be very detailed theme park done by me and my 2 kids. So that's a fun fact about me.
I was going to say, I bet your kids enjoy that, Ruth. I'm sure that makes you such a cool mom.
Oh, thank you. It's hours and hours of afternoons.
All right, and I'll quickly introduce myself. I do have another side, which I'll go into a little bit more detail, but my name is Jenn Travis, and I'm a university recruiter at Microsoft. And so I help to hire for the open roles that we have across the Middle East and Africa, which I will be talking to you all a little bit more about here today. And then my fun fact, I don't know if it's necessarily fun, but I guess it's kind of unique, is that I'm a certified scuba diver. And so I've gone scuba diving in a couple of different locations around the world, and I absolutely love to go diving. So that's my fun fact. Alex, am I good to dive into the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I'm excited to share a little bit more about our university recruiting process, and honestly, to hopefully demystify it. I know sometimes it can seem overwhelming, or like you're not really aware of what's going on. So the purpose of the presentation is to really just clear that up, and then answer any questions that you might have as well about the process after. So the agenda that we'll just run through today is I'll tell you, and sorry if I'm looking over here, I'm looking at my second screen as well. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself and my journey to Microsoft. I'll talk to you about our Microsoft mission and culture, which I assume you would all be semi-familiar with. Talk about the opportunities that we have within the ADC, so both in Kenya and Nigeria, for a high-level overview. Talk about our full-time versus the internship roles, tell you a little bit more about our recruiting cycle, which is really important. And then last but not least, share some CV tips and tricks with you as well. So if you are interested in applying, you can apply those tricks and tips that I share to your application too, just to help kind of boost it. So to start with, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on my background, so you have an idea of who's talking to you here today. So I am originally from Seattle, Washington. Microsoft is headquartered in a place called Redmond in Washington State. And so my home is about 15 minutes away from the headquarters. So born and raised in Seattle. There's my family right there, my mom and my dad and my sister. They're all back in Seattle, and I'm really looking forward to going home for Christmas and getting to see them in a few weeks now. I went to university in Southern California at the University of San Diego, and I actually rode crew there for 4 years. So it was a very intense time in my life, but very fun. After I graduated, I went to the south of Florida, and I ended up working on a super yacht for about half a year. I don't know if any of you have heard of the TV show or seen the TV show Below Deck, but that is very similar to what my experience was like while I was working on the yacht. So very unique, very challenging, but really, really cool to kind of go and experience something so different. I then worked for a little bit at a company called Lululemon, which is I worked on the retail side of things. And so I helped to kind of manage the storefront. And then after I did that, so about a year after I graduated, I actually started my employment at Microsoft in Seattle. And so I was based in Seattle for about a year. And then after that, I had the opportunity to move to Europe. And so I'm currently based in Dublin, Ireland. So for the past 4 years that I've been here, I've been focused on hiring software engineers and program managers for our development sites across Europe and then Africa as well, once we opened the ADC about 2 years ago at this point, I believe. So that's just a little background on my journey to Microsoft. Hopefully you are all familiar with Microsoft's mission statement. If not, it's there on the screen. So it's to empower every person or every organization on the planet to achieve more. That means so many different things to every person. I think to me personally, I feel like it's the opportunity to kind of live to this mission statement every day, working with students and helping to hire for the opportunities that we have. I think I get to empower you all to kind of achieve your dreams at Microsoft. And so it's really great to be able to apply the mission statement directly to myself. And I'm really appreciative that I get to work at a company that, has such a grand mission statement, such a big one, but also such an impactful one. Also wanted to share a little bit about our culture. I think, at a lot of companies, you kind of hear all these buzzwords, but you wonder if they really, you wonder if the employees really feel that these are authentic. And I truly believe in kind of these 5 components of, the makeup of our culture. So the first is growth mindset. That is certainly a buzzword that has been tossed around a lot recently, but really what that means is moving away from a fixed mindset or moving away from this kind of approach that what you know right now is the right, path and is the only thing that you should know. Whereas when you have a growth mindset, you're open to new ideas, you're open to kind of being creative and thinking outside of the box. And Microsoft really encourages all of their employees to have a growth mindset because we want to be innovating and, tying into our mission statement, empowering those around the globe. And if we aren't being open-minded and kind of taking risks, possibly failing, but learning from our failures, then we're not able to kind of help empower. So really kind of pushing forward this growth mindset and learning at every opportunity there is. We are also very customer obsessed. We wouldn't be the company that we are and as successful as we are without our customers. And so they are at the forefront of, everything that we do, every new product that we release, every new tool or technology that our engineers are working on. They're always thinking about how the customer is going to respond or what the customer's biggest problems are. And so, for me, while I may not be on the engineering side of things, I'm still very much thinking about how my customers, which would essentially be you as students, how you are kind of understanding our recruiting process, how you are, approaching it. And so this is just one opportunity where I get the chance to, as I said, demystify the process for you, but help to kind of help you all understand a little bit more about what it looks like. Diverse and inclusive. Again, that really ties into our mission statement in that we can't be empowering people around the globe and understanding what everyone's problems are, or what everyone's needs are, if we are not representative of, the people that make up the world itself. And so Microsoft is very focused on bringing in people from different backgrounds and different experiences. Diversity means so many different things. And so we're always very intentional about how we're recruiting, who we're talking to. And I think, this might come up later as we're talking about the opportunities that we have. But you don't have to just be a computer science student or a software engineering student to be able to land a software engineering opportunity at Microsoft. And that's because we value diverse backgrounds. We've hired people from physics or geology, completely different backgrounds, but they've just really shown that passion for technology, which is what we're looking for. The last two, one, Microsoft and making a difference. We're a global company and we have offices across the world, over 140,000 employees. But at the end of the day, we all work for Microsoft and we all want to be able to make a difference and have an impact. And so that's a constant conversation that we have in our own teams with our managers, with you all as students, is what can we be doing and to make this impact and kind of to improve our customers, lives around the globe. And so these are kind of constant focuses that we have, and it very much makes up our culture. And it's a really exciting time to be a part of the company because there is such a focus on these 5 components. So I wanted to share that high level just to touch on in case those are areas that you weren't aware of. So hopefully that was just kind of a good overview. Now I will actually dive into the opportunities that we have within the ADC. So we have 2 offices that we're hiring for in Nairobi and then in Lagos as well. And so the opportunities that I currently have to offer are software engineering and program management roles. I'll tell you a little bit more about the difference between the 2 on the next slide. The most important thing to kind of be aware of when you're considering these opportunities are those check marks there. So to be eligible, do you have a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree in engineering, computer science, or a related field? As I just said, we certainly are targeting those who are pursuing a degree in a STEM-related field. But if you can show that you have programming experience outside of your degree, that's really important too, and it's certainly an indicator that you could be successful in one of these roles. We'd also look for some level of experience programming. Again, you're university students, so we recognize that you might not have 15 years of, experience programming in C++, but if you can kind of indicate that you have a few years there, then, that would certainly indicate a strength. And then most importantly, for our university opportunities, you must be a student. We, focus a lot on graduation dates to understand whether you're eligible for an internship or for a full-time opportunity. And so if you're graduating in 2022, then you're eligible for our internship roles. And if you're graduating in 2021, then you are eligible for our full-time opportunities. For those, if you know other people who are interested in Microsoft but may have graduated a year or 2 or 3 years ago, they would be eligible to go down our industry path. So there are tons of opportunities into Microsoft, but for our university roles, we're certainly targeting students such as yourselves who are still in university. So to talk a little bit more about the actual 2 paths that we have currently, we have the software engineer and the program manager. So software engineer would be very typical to what you think of a software engineer would do. They are the ones that are programming all day. They're building out our tools and technologies. They're testing. They are kind of diving deep into the trenches to understand, what our customers need and then building it out. So for people that are looking to be software engineers, you really do have to have this passion for programming and this desire to, kind of be focused on that day in and day out. We are looking for students who have a background in algorithms and data structures, kind of the fundamentals there. When it comes to languages or programming languages that we focus on, we typically like to say we look for object-oriented programming experience, but the reality is as long as you have some sort of programming knowledge and some sort of background and you have the fundamentals there from your university or from the online courses that you're taking, we can help get you up to speed in whatever language you need to be successful on your team. So any object-oriented experience you have, put that on your resume. That's very important. But if you, are super passionate about some other language, we want to see kind of that diversity and experience as well. When it comes to the program manager, our program managers are very technical as well. Most of our roles at Microsoft, you do need to have some sort of technical background, and the program manager is no different. And that's because while the program manager is thinking more big picture and kind of, understanding from the customer what their needs are, the program manager is that middleman between the customer and the engineer. So they need to be able to have the communication, have the conversations with the customers, be able to kind of explain in layman's terms to the customers what solutions we can provide, but then also go back to the engineering team and be able to explain to the engineer in, more technical related terms what they need to be working on. And so for that, it's really important that you have the people skills, the collaboration skills. You are able to take an idea and kind of turn it into a reality. So you wouldn't be programming like you would for the software engineering role, but you would still need to be able to kind of understand what the engineers are doing and help them understand, what features you're looking to add in or how you kind of like to change a product for the better. So that's the difference between the two roles. I recognize I'm going to be talking a lot as I go through all of this. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or you can ask them at the end. Alex, if you want to stop me at any point, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I'll just keep going through. So we have two different paths into Microsoft as a university student. And the first one is the internship path. So that would be for students that are graduating in 2022 for this kind of cohort that we're hiring for next, just have an internship next summer. Our internships are between 3 and 6 months in length, and it certainly depends on how much of a break you have between your university classes and when your summer is or when you have time off. But we bring in students for 3 to 6 months. It's full time during that time. It's paid, and it's a great opportunity to get a very solid insight into what it's Microsoft. You are not, running and getting coffee for the team, or you're not doing silly errands. You're actually getting a project to work on, or you're working on the same kind of, project that your actual manager is working on. So you have the chance to have a very significant impact. Sometimes, the project, you're able to complete it in the 3 or 6 months that you're with Microsoft, and sometimes you have to hand it back over to the team so they can continue working once you go back to school. So it's a really cool chance to, dive into something where you actually get to see and, possibly ship it to millions of people around the globe and have that impact there. The other really exciting piece about our internships is that they are backed by full-time offers. So if you come and intern with us for, 3 months and you do an amazing job, you get really positive feedback from your manager. At the end of your time with us, we are going to be able to extend you an offer and say, hey, when you graduate, we'd love for you to come back full-time with us. So that means that you go into your last year at university having an offer in hand and knowing that you have a full-time job at Microsoft when you graduate. So it's one of the things that sets our intern program apart. Just kind of saying, this is a great chance for you to get experience, but it's also a chance for you to kind of prove to us and prove to yourself and really understand what it's like to work at Microsoft and learn more about the culture and learn more about the values and see if it's a place that you see yourself being long-term. And so one thing, that's important to note there. And then the last thing is our intern program in general. COVID aside, we typically would host, a variety of events. And so while we may not be able to do it on site next summer, we certainly have a lot of technical talks and, lunch and learn sessions where you have the chance to learn from a variety of individuals at Microsoft on a variety of different topics. You have the chance to connect with other interns, across the continent and then also in Europe and the Middle East as well. We've had, online escape rooms. So there's just a fun community and you get the chance to really network across the organization with other interns, but then also with, full-time employees as well. So that's a little bit about the intern program. Our full-time opportunities would be for students that are graduating then next summer or who have graduated within the past few months. And so we have flexible start dates when it comes to our full-time opportunities. We recognize sometimes, students, when you graduate, you want to take a few months off and relax. You've just been studying and working hard, whereas other students are eager to dive right in and get started straight away. So depending upon which path you're interested in, we can be very flexible with the start date. You also have any university hire that we make joins our Aspire program, which is essentially a 2-year onboarding program that we have for all of the university hires that we make across the globe. And so that is very much focused on helping you understand how to, fully embrace, again, the Microsoft culture, mission, values, and also network with your fellow university hires from across the globe. So engineering hires, program manager hires, our operations hires, finance hires, HR, all of them are all part of this program. So you have a massive network, as well as tons of learning opportunities and mentorship opportunities. And again, you're obviously, full-time, so you're diving right into a team where you get to have real impact. And it's, paid and there's great benefits and all of that comes with it. So that those are the 2 paths into Microsoft, the internship and the full-time, and it's very much dictated by your graduation date. We cannot make exceptions there. So if you are, applying, please be mindful of that because you'll automatically be rejected if you apply for, a full-time job, but you're not graduating until 2023, or if you apply for an intern job, but you've, graduated 5 years ago. So it's just important to kind of be mindful of that as well. Our recruiting cycle looks a little bit like this. This year, our applications have been posted online since early September. And so they've been open for anyone who's interested to apply at microsoft.com/university. You can filter by country. You can filter by discipline, so software engineering or program manager, if that's kind of the route that you want to go. I am in the process of reviewing applications. So I go through kind of all of the applications that we've received during this time. And based on, the applications that I have, I then move students forward for that first round interview. So I've been doing a lot of that last week and this week, and we'll do so next week. So if you are interested in applying after, hearing this presentation today, I would encourage you to submit your application as soon as possible because we are in that process of inviting candidates to the first round interview. The first round interview is a 30-minute phone call with a recruiting colleague of mine. If you're, interviewing for a software engineering role, well, both software engineering and program manager, they will ask you questions around your motivation for applying, questions around your collaboration experiences. So, projects that you worked on that are technically focused. They will ask you a couple problem-solving questions just to really understand how you think. And then last but not least, if you're interviewing for a software engineering role, we also do send you a coding test. So it takes about, I think there's 80 minutes for you to complete it, and there's 3 problems that you're asked to solve. And so that just allows us to understand kind of your technical knowledge and technical depth. Both are required to, move through that first round. Neither one is the final say. They're just kind of points for us to understand, how you've been able to apply yourself and why you're interested in this opportunity. And then after that, the next and the final round is the final round interviews, which are happening in January or February of next year. And they are taking place over Teams, obviously, but they are 4 45-minute interviews And so you'll have the chance to actually speak with, engineers that you potentially could be working directly with. If you're applying for a software engineering job, you will be doing a lot of programming. They will kind of be whiteboarding with you, really understanding how you think, how you approach different problems and solve them. The interviewers understand that you're all university students, and so they very much are looking for potential. So I think sometimes students get really wrapped up in that they need to have amazing skills and they need to be able to show off and kind of solve all of the problems, that the interviewer gives them. But the most important thing is kind of demonstrating that you have the fundamentals, and that if you aren't able to solve a problem straight off, you're going to take a second to really think about it and understand how you can apply what you know to work towards a solution. So we're not always looking for perfect here. We actually sometimes want the messy or the imperfect, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in that to grow or kind of challenge the way that people are thinking. The program manager interviews, that would certainly be a little less technical, but there would still be a technical component to it, but also understanding your leadership experience, your, kind of manager experience, or just how would you be able to influence a team or kind of inspire a team as well, as those are key components for the program manager interview. So that's the cycle. Again, we're kind of right in here in this early portion, but these first round interviews are coming up very, very quickly. So again, if you're interested, get your application in as soon as possible so you can be considered. Last but not least, I just wanted to share a few CV tips and tricks. These aren't anything super innovative, but it's funny how many times, people leave these key components off of their resume. And so I just wanted to take a second to go through it all. First and foremost, making sure that you include your university, your major, and your graduation date, so month and year. This is really important for me to just understand what your background is and kind of what school you're coming from, what you're studying, and also when you're graduating, to make sure that you are eligible for the opportunities. Again, so many students leave this off, which is always very funny to me. So making sure you have it on there, and even at the top of your resume, if you're still a student, is awesome. Any internships and work experience. If you don't have any, that's entirely fine. But if you do, put it on there. The point that I'd make with that is making sure that it's applicable internships and work experience. So if you're applying for a software engineering job, that is awesome. If you've worked at your local deli or you've worked in retail, but it's not very applicable to this role that you're applying for, and it just takes up space on your resume. So be intentional about the work that you're putting on there, and keeping your resume to one page is also very important too. So as a university student, you have experience, but we would expect that it would be limited, to that one page, and you would be able to kind of put on the most relevant pieces of information to that one page. Then any coding languages and relevant coursework. So coding languages, as I said earlier, we certainly look for object-oriented experience, but if you have a lot of experience in some other language, put that on there as well, and kind of your level of experience with all of the languages you've used. If you've taken courses in data structures and algorithms, put that on there. I mentioned that's really important, whether it's through your university or you've taken online courses through edX or Harvard or, whatever, Coursera, I think is another one. So even if you've done it through that, I want to see that because it shows me you have the fundamentals. Academic record, that's okay if you were on the dean's list or if you were valedictorian or something like that. You don't need to list all of the classes that you've taken. You can put your GPA on there or kind of your ranking or however it's done at your university, but it's not the most important thing. So just maybe something to include if there's space. Then any extracurricular projects. So if you have a GitHub, which I would recommend you all if you're looking for a software engineering or a program manager job, I'd recommend that you are active on your GitHub and you put it on there. Because I always click on it. Every time I get an application with a GitHub link, I'm always clicking on it to just kind of see what you're up to and how much you've contributed. If you've taken any online courses that are separate from your degree, put those on there. If you've built an app, if you've tutored, I love to see a tutoring experience because it shows that you are passionate about technology and giving back. anything that really does show that passion and that interest in technology outside of the classroom is so important. So however you can highlight that. Leadership experience, whether it's through a club, whether it's through a sport, anything again that highlights that you have something that ties back to the cultural attributes that we talked about earlier would be really great as well. And then last but not least, and I touched on this earlier, but making sure you keep all the information relevant. We receive a lot of applications, as you can imagine. And so I want to make sure that when I am reviewing your CV, I'm getting a great picture of why you are a solid candidate for a software engineering or for a program manager opportunity. And make sure you also update it. If you are writing a little blurb at the top about the role that you're looking for, that you update it for Microsoft and update it for the role that you're applying for specifically. Again, sometimes that gets missed on applications. And so it's just important to review it a couple of times and, share out your CV with other people to just have them look through it again before you submit it. So some general tips and tricks there, but hopefully it helps to give a good idea of what we're looking for as we review applications. So I know I've just kind of talked now for a long while, but I will hand it over to you guys in case there are questions or comments or anything that you would like me to kind of revisit now.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So we have a few questions on the chat section and others that we collected from the audience. So the first question is, Helen is asking, can you switch between roles in the company, e.g. from software engineering to UI or UX design?
Sorry, I feel like it's a little hard to hear you, but was it a question around if there are other roles aside from software engineering and program manager?
Okay, the question is, can somebody switch from software engineering role to UI/UX design?
Yes. So there are tons of opportunities to move within Microsoft. As you can imagine, it's a massive company, and so there's no one career path that you have to go down. And so I think we don't in the ADCs right now, we don't have any open UX roles. But if there are those opportunities after you've kind of been a software engineer for 2 years or a program manager for 2 years, and you're ready to take on that next challenge, there's very much that opportunity for you to move. I recommend you kind of start making those connections with the people early on. It can take a little bit of time for an opportunity to pop up and for you to actually be able to interview for it. But there are tons of opportunities and there's always a chance for you to move. It just does require you to put in that effort and make those connections and then, potentially interview for the job.
Okay. And are there opportunities in the data science team?
In the what team?
Data science.
Data science. Again, it would be a similar response. So right now, the only two opportunities that we have with university recruiting would be software engineer and program manager opportunities, but there's always a chance to kind of grow within Microsoft, be it in the ADC, or if you're looking to move to a different location like I did. There are data scientist roles at Microsoft. It just depends what it's going to look like, when you're ready to make that move.
Okay, then Bethan is asking, okay, there's a situation in Kenya, let's say when somebody completed campus, let's say, for example, April, the graduation month is always maybe 6 months later. So how do you address this when you're applying for a specific role?
Sorry, Felix, can you repeat the question?
Okay, a situation where your graduation date is different from when you completed the campus. So how do you address that?
If your graduation date is different than when you completed your application?
I mean, it's different from the date when you completed the campus.
So I guess it depends how big of a gap there is. If you're still within the university requirement mark, so you're still within a year of graduating, then we can very much consider your application. I think what I would just recommend is when you hear from a university recruiter such as myself, if we are moving forward with your application, then you just update the recruiter at that point to let them know there's been a change to your graduation date. We recognize that right now, a lot of students, graduation dates are mostly getting pushed back just because of the pandemic. And so we're trying to kind of adapt as much as we can to that. So it's really just communicating that to the recruiter when you hear from them if there's any update to your graduation date.
Okay, then another question is, if you specialize in the field of AI, are you eligible for the role of a program manager?
If you have a what in AI?
If you specialize in AI, are you eligible for the program manager role?
Yeah, so again, like we're not super picky on what your background is, as long as you can demonstrate that you have programming experience, that you have that passion for technology, and that you can, you are interested and inspired by Microsoft culture and our mission and value. So whatever background you're coming from is very applicable if you can kind of just show that you have those core fundamentals. AI is definitely very relevant, ML as well, but just kind of knowing that your job won't be specific to those two paths. But there are opportunities for you, regardless of what your degree is, as long as you can demonstrate your programming experience and your technical depth and knowledge.
Okay, then if your application is not replied, does it mean that it is invalid?
So if you can view the application status at microsoft.com/university. So if you log in and then click on your name, which is in the top right-hand corner, there's a drop-down menu that shows up and it says Action Center. And I think you click on that. And that's how you can see, if your application is still active. If it's inactive, or if it kind of says, it's no longer under consideration, that means that, the recruiter has updated the status and we're not moving forward with your application. If it still says resume review, I think is what it says, but if it still says it's an active application, that means that we are considering it. So I do want to say we've just started kind of moving into this stage where we're inviting students to the first round of interviews. So you can kind of expect an update to your application within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, then one more question. Okay, what is Microsoft doing to maintain its employees as there are more competitors coming in Africa with better incentives?
Yeah, I mean, we are always going to, have competitors kind of around the globe. And I think I can only speak to what my personal take on it is. And I think one of the amazing things that Microsoft has to offer is the culture that is very prevalent and that I, talked through earlier on. There are a lot of amazing companies out there to work for. And I think, as you're kind of applying, it's really understanding what's important to the company, what's important to you. Are you more driven by compensation and benefits, or are you more driven by work-life balance or, the actual project work that you get to work on? So we have a lot of amazing projects that are happening within the ADC. It's certainly growing like crazy. Microsoft has an amazing work-life balance. There are so many opportunities to network and be mentored by incredible people across the company. And so it's really just kind of being aware of what you're looking for as you start out your career and then making the right pick for you as you're applying to different companies. Are there any more questions, Felix? I wonder if we've lost him there. Alex, do you have any other questions that have come up?
Actually, Alex dropped off. And then my Alexa just came in because I said Alex. Sorry about that. Yeah. So which question did we leave off? I think we lost Felix. I'm just going down the. Did we cover the? So yeah, we covered the. If the application is not applied to, if the application is not replied to, does that mean it's valid? We covered that, right?
Yes, correct. So it'll still, if it's still showing as active, then it's still valid.
Okay, how about, given that I have already applied for an internship and I feel as I need to update my resume, I've seen the option to update it, but as a recruiter, do you see the updated version?
Yeah, so if you do update it, I would just, when I'm looking into your application, it'll just show me the most updated version. If you have any, problems or issues with your application, at the bottom of the careers page, there's also a support button, and you can always click on that and submit a ticket and say, oh, I want to upload my new resume, or, I'm having issues, and they can assist you with it as well. But if you've been able to kind of update it on your own, then that is the resume that I will be seeing as I review your application. Good question. And then I see a question here, so I'm just looking at it. When you miss a chance, how soon can you reapply? So we typically recommend waiting 6 months to a year to reapply if you've kind of gone through a first round interview and you weren't successful with it. And that's simply because we want you to be successful. So we want to see you kind of grow and build on the experiences after that first round interview. If you apply though and aren't moved forward with the first round interview, you're more than welcome to apply again for the next recruiting cycle. But just kind of keeping in mind that you're building on the experiences that you currently have and making your application more relevant for this opportunity that you're applying for. Should my resume reflect the role I am applying to? Yes, please. It makes a lot of sense if you're applying for a software engineering role. As I said, just kind of making sure you're highlighting your programming experience, you have the fundamentals, your GitHub, whether you built an app, kind of all those pieces. And then for the program manager role, making sure you're highlighting, again, your technical expertise, but then also the leadership opportunities that you have had or kind of the program managing experiences that you've had. Do you have sample resumes you can share? I do not. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be compliant for me to share resumes. You can always kind of go on, Microsoft Bing or on Google and kind of do a quick, search to understand. I think Microsoft Word also has a really cool resume feature now. So if you're building out your resume there, it connects to LinkedIn and will kind of show you similar profiles to yours. Or if you're looking for a specific job, it'll tell you a little bit more about what you can include. So I'd recommend using that or just kind of using some of the other tips and tricks that I've shared here today.
Hey, Jen. So I'm also getting a couple of questions here regarding now on the interview. One of the questions is that, does the level of abstraction determine what happens in the interview, how the interview is conducted?
Does the level of what?
The level of abstraction.
So the interviews will be the same on the software engineering side and then on the program managing side. So we're pretty specific with our interviewers on what we'd like them to cover for especially the first round interview. And then the final round interview, the interviewers, you'll have 4 different interviewers and they'll talk amongst themselves around what they would kind of like to cover throughout the course of the interviews. They will also have your CVs in front of them. And so if there is something specific or maybe some unique experience that you have that they want to talk through, they will bring that up. So another point there is make sure that you put things on your resume that you actually want to be able to talk to in a potential interview. But we do give our interviewers for the final round interview a little bit more freedom to kind of take it in the direction that they want. They, will work really closely with you to solve the problems that they give you. Again, it's just really understanding how you think and how you apply the knowledge that you have to situations and how you kind of push through even if you get stuck in an interview.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question is, in the event of an interview, and for example, there is some technical issue with, for example, your internet or your power, what is the first thing someone should do?
Yeah, it's been happening all the time now because things are moving to all of our interviews are taking place over Teams. And so it's just the reality of the world that we're living in that, there's going to be Wi-Fi issues and connectivity issues. So, just trying to reconnect. We can advise that you connect to Teams ahead of time, make sure you've set up your account, you've tested out your video and your audio and everything is kind of working. But on the day, if something, goes wrong and you aren't able to complete the interview, we'll reschedule. We're interested in kind of making it work, and we're interested in getting you interviewed. So we understand things come up, and they'll come up with their interviewers as well. They're working from home too, so they'll face similar issues. So the reality is, just send an email to, whoever your recruiter is, and we'll get you rescheduled at a later date if we aren't able to get you back online.
Thank you. One of the other questions that is being asked here on the chat, use a bot or a system to pick out the CVs or the application?
Nope. So it's all reviewed by myself or a colleague of mine. So we kind of go through all of the applications that we receive. We are able to filter, and we filter by, graduation date, as I've mentioned. That's really important. And then also making sure we are looking at students that are located in Kenya or Nigeria for opportunities. But beyond that, we go through the applications.
Thank you for that. The next question is, what if someone moved from Kenya to another region? Do they get to reapply for the same position in that country?
Let me just read the question. What happens when I get a full-time opportunity but I relocated? Do I have to reapply to work? I live in Nairobi, and so maybe I'm not understanding the question, but right now we're hiring for roles within Nairobi and in Lagos. We unfortunately don't have any opportunities in Seattle this year, simply due to the pandemic and kind of visa constraints and things like that. So we are considering students that have work authorization for those two locations in Africa. We're not able to offer relocation to the US at this time. I'm not sure if that's the question exactly.
I can answer that question. So if you were to be hired into Microsoft for a particular country, let's say it's in ADC in Nairobi, if you want an opportunity in another country, you do have to reapply for that. So it's not, you don't just transfer over, you have to go through interview process as well. We have an internal recruiting process, but to answer that particular question, when you go from one country to another, it's kind of treated like a new position. And even though if it's, let's say, the same, you do have to still go through the recruiting process.
Thanks, Ruth.
Yeah.
And then I see a question here. Are there any opportunities available for anyone graduating later than 2022? So we don't currently have the Explorer program in Africa. That is current state, but there is always future state, and the hope would be that we are able to introduce it. Right now, we're focusing on interns. Those that are eligible for the internships are graduating in 2022, but next year, it would be those that are graduating in 2023. So I would always say, feel free to kind of keep in touch. You can set up job alerts at microsoft.com/university. So, next year as you're starting to look, you can get updates as soon as we're posting the opportunities and be the first one to apply. We also have a Microsoft University Recruiting LinkedIn group, which you all can join. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well to kind of just stay up to date and aware about the opportunities that we have. But for this cohort, we are targeting students for the intern roles that are graduating in 2022. There's a question here about updating your profile after applying. So you should be able to go into your login again and go into your Action Center. If you have any data, you can always click on the support button at the bottom of the careers page to submit a request to have them update your application as well. And then I see a question about applying using LinkedIn. So you can apply using LinkedIn. The only ask that I have is that you also upload a copy of your CV. Sometimes when it allows you to apply with your LinkedIn, it doesn't connect directly. And so it makes it a lot easier on myself as I'm reviewing applications and a lot quicker if you've also submitted a copy of your CV. So I would just ask you to do that as well. But you can apply formally using LinkedIn and then just add your CV as an addition to that as well. I think we've gone through all of the questions. More than happy to stay on if anyone else has anything else they'd like to ask or talk through. I'm not sure if Felix has been able to come back.
Okay, so are you able to hear me? Are you getting me clearly?
I can hear you. It's a little muffled, but I think we can make it out.
Okay, so I don't think there is any other question. I think we can just wrap it up. Maybe just one last advice you can give to a student aspiring to get Microsoft.
Yeah, I would maybe this isn't really advice, but I would say apply. I think sometimes Microsoft is a big company and it can be very intimidating. But the reality is, we are really excited to get your application. I spent a lot of time reviewing them and going through them because I sincerely care. Not only is it my job, but I also sincerely care about, helping you all find opportunities within the company. So I would say, take the time to really spruce up your application and be intentional about the roles that you're applying for. But submit your application and see what happens. Because I think any opportunity to learn is a good opportunity. And even if you don't get the opportunity with Microsoft, but you get to go through the interview process, you can always apply that to other companies, or you can apply that and come back next year to interview again. So I would just say be confident in your skills, highlight them on your CV and then submit your application. And, hopefully, we'll get to see you around Microsoft in the future.
Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, I'm just getting one last question in my inbox. Someone is asking, will you mind to let us know how many people you usually recruit in one cycle?
Yeah, so it changes each year. So this is the first year that we're actually hiring into university students into Nigeria and into Kenya. And so the hope is that year over year, it will continue to increase. So I can't share specific numbers that we're looking for at this time, but we do have a good size, cohort that we're looking to bring into both locations. And then year over year, we're going to look to see it grow as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we can get one last word from Ruth. Yep.
Well, Felix, I think there was another question that came in while she was answering the last couple of questions. It says, are you looking at offering to other African countries too, apart from Kenya and Nigeria? I don't know if that that question came up.
No, that's okay. We haven't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer that. So right now we only have the offices with engineering in Kenya and in Nigeria. We do hire into other locations in Africa, but they would be more sales type roles. And so this year we've hired into Morocco, into Egypt, into South Africa, and then Kenya and Nigeria for these more technical sales type roles. So at the moment, those are the locations that we're currently hiring into. As I said, year over year, though, it changes. Last year we were able to extend offers to students from across Africa to come and work in Redmond, so in our headquarters in Seattle. And hopefully, next year we'll be able to do that again. So it's really just constantly changing. And that's why I say having the job alerts at Microsoft.com/university is super handy. So you can kind of stay in the loop with what's coming as we're constantly updating and posting new roles.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the participation and the questions, and hopefully you all have a clearer idea about our recruiting process. And I feel free to connect with me, ask questions, and hopefully I'll get to see your application soon.
Okay, Ruth, maybe do you have something to say before we end the meeting?
Yeah, so thank you so much for attending this session. This was really, really important session for those of you that have connected with me and asked me, how to demystify the recruiting process. This was a really important session, and I thank you for those that were able to attend. Just so you know, we do not consider anyone unless they actually apply. So first thing you need to do is look at all the opportunities out there and really apply. Because if you reach out to me through LinkedIn and say, hey, can I be considered for this role? The first thing I will tell you is you have to go to that role and apply. All right. So for those of you that are interested in working for us, please apply, and looking forward to eventually working with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruth and Jean. So those who will need the recording of this session, it will be on YouTube by tomorrow evening. So kindly check our YouTube channel, that is Microsoft Learn Students Ambassadors Kenya, and you'll find the recording to this session. So thank you very much, everyone, and you can leave at your own pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.